Guys, today we're listening to Tyler Vitelli.
I think sleep paralysis is simply a bad dream, and I used to believe that too. But everything changed when I experienced it for myself, and something that no scientific explanation could explain happened. Because the things I saw during sleep paralysis didn't just stay in my dreams, they followed me to my real life. So let's start from the beginning. It started about 2 years ago, and there I was, super excited about moving out of my parents' house for the first time. I was heading to college, and I was finally gonna get my first experience of independence. But I shouldn't have been so excited, because the place I was moving into for college raised some red flags immediately. Like the landlord for this place was a guy named Mr. Peterson, who always seemed paranoid. Whenever you would talk to him, he'd be looking
definitely
around
a kidnapper,
keep
y'all.
an eye out for someone. And when I asked about the previous tenants at the place, he quickly changed the subject. But the biggest red flag should have been when I saw these weird headstones poking out of the yard right outside the building. Because I asked the landlord what they were, and he just told me they were some old statues that got worn down over time, but that was far from the truth. And if I knew what those statues really were from the beginning, I never would have moved in. The first night I slept there was actually pretty normal. I slept like a baby, which started to make me feel confident that I moved into the right place. No weird noises.
Hold on, y'all.
Yo, they don't mess me up, bro.
Should I just get a lineup, dude? I'm actually terrified to go bald. Raise a hand for if I should go bald.
Oh, bald, yeah.
100% should go bald.
Mommy, can I have a suckle doing this?
No, yeah.
Razor. Next head. Let's get to it. This is our only opportunity to really give him something weird before it's on.
Yo, can you give me that good stuff to shove? Do I look good bald?
I actually think so, right?
Wait, do I have any moles like Dad does on his head, Oliver? This is literally my hair.
It's like a giant turd.
Dude, I'm gonna keep this. My hair smells really good.
No.
Oh my gosh! I'm actually terrified to look in the mirror. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Crazy?
What do I wish for?
Okay, sorry, y'all.
My living room, even though the thermostat was set to 75 degrees, or how my bathroom door would be open in the morning when I was positive I shut it the night before. Little stuff that you just brush off. But then one night, I couldn't sleep, and I just decided to go down an internet rabbit hole researching about the building. I looked up how long it's been here, and that's when I found out that it was built in 1972. But here's the kicker.
God dang!
It was built on what used to be a cemetery. Y'all see where we're going now? The article mentioned that all the...
Wait, by the way, guys, my house was built a way long time ago, so mine probably is haunted too. I don't know.
graves were relocated before...
Can I keep hearing stuff in the attic right beside my room? Is anybody in my attic?
Construction. So I figured it wasn't a big deal. Lots of older neighborhoods are built on former cemeteries, right? Now, I don't know what they do with the bodies, but I'm sure it's okay. At the time, I actually thought it was kind of cool in a morbid way because I love spooky stuff. But then the night came where everything changed. A couple weeks after moving in, I've been sleeping pretty good every night up until this day. Because on this particular night, I went to bed like usual, but around 3 a.m., I suddenly woke up. My eyes opened, but that was it. The rest of my body just wouldn't move. At first,
Sometimes when I wake up, I have like a dream where one time I was drinking something, and then whenever I drank it, I couldn't breathe. And I was like, it was like my mouth and throat were stuffed. And I'm like, and then a few seconds later, I'm like, I wake up.
thought I was still dreaming or something. So I tried to lift my arm, but it just wouldn't happen. I tried to sit up, but I couldn't. I was completely frozen. It was as if someone poured concrete on my whole body while I was sleeping. The only thing I could move were my eyes, which made it even more terrifying because of what I saw in my surroundings. I started panicking, trying to scream, but my mouth wouldn't open. And then I felt this pressure in my chest, almost as if someone was sitting on top of me. It got harder and harder to breathe, and I remember thinking, I can't die like this. I haven't gotten a haircut in forever. I'm gonna look so chopped at my funeral! And that's when I noticed the shadow. A dark shape in the corner of my room, right by my closet. At first I thought it was just one of my clothes hung up, but I'm too lazy to do laundry. I never had clean clothes hung up like that. This shadow was different. It had the outline of a person, just standing there in the darkness, watching me. I couldn't turn my head to get a better look, but I could see it from the corner of my eye. Then the shadow started moving. not walking, but almost gliding across the room. And it got closer and closer to my bed. It was going super slowly, and my heart was racing. Felt like it was going to explode. I was still screaming in my head, but nothing was coming out of my mouth. The shadow got closer and closer until suddenly, it was at the foot of my bed. This dark, human-shaped mass just standing there. I squeezed my eyes shut because I couldn't handle looking at it anymore. And when I opened my eyes again, I could move. Just like that. The nightmare was over. So I sat up, gasping for air, turning on every
That's all I gotta do if I get that? Dang.
light I could reach. The shadow was gone, so I checked the time, and it was around 3:30 a.m. I didn't go back to sleep that night. Just sat in bed with all the lights on, scrolling through the internet trying to figure out what just happened to me. And that's when I found some articles about sleep paralysis. According to what I read, sleep paralysis happens when your brain wakes up before your body does. Your body stays in sleep mode, so you're basically paralyzed, even though your mind is conscious of what's going on around you. The pressure on the chest, the feeling of being watched, even the shadowy figures that I saw also symptoms of sleep paralysis. So I was sure this is what I was going through, but little did I know, it was so much worse than just sleep paralysis. Instead, it was something way more real. I texted my friend I knew has had sleep paralysis before, telling them about my experience, and they replied back saying, it happens more often when you're stressed or in a new environment. So that totally made sense to me because I just moved in the week before. He reassured me that the dreams would go away once I got comfortable in the place. But that did not happen. At the time, I just felt so much better knowing that there was a logical explanation for what was going on. It wasn't ghosts or anything, just my brain being stressed about.
Guys, my TV got removed. There's a mirror behind my TV. I'm forced to look at myself every night. Scary.
Living in a new place for the first time on my own. I wish that logical explanation was what really happened though. If only I had known that this was just the beginning and it would get much worse. I thought I was in the clear after that first night. I had 3 whole days after this where I slept without having any problems. No weird shadows, no feeling trapped in my body, nothing. I really actually started to believe that it was just stress from moving into a new place. Then it happened again. But this time, way worse. I woke up around the same time, 3 a.m., completely frozen, just as I was before. But when I looked towards my closet this time, it wasn't just a shadowy figure. Now, there was a man standing in front of my bed. I could see him more clearly now than the first time I experienced this. He was wearing some sort of old military uniform with that high collar and a button-up jacket. It looked straight out of something like World War I. His face wasn't totally clear to me, kind of blurry around the edges, but I could see his expression. And he looked angry. Not just regular angry, but like hateful, as if
Oh, ghost.
it was directed towards me. His eyes were locked on mine with intense stares that made my skin crawl. But after having the previous experience, when this was happening, I would just keep telling myself, it's just sleep paralysis, it's just sleep paralysis, it's just sleep paralysis. But this felt different from the first time. I'm confident I could hear him breathing. I didn't hear noises during that first experience, so I didn't know if this was supposed to be a part of it. He had super heavy breaths, as if he used to be a smoker in his past life, and he just stood there over me for what felt like forever. After a while, everything went black, and then when I woke up for real, it was finally morning time. The first thing I noticed after waking up was a picture I had hung up was crooked. I figured I must have just done that in my sleep, but wanting to see what that looked like, I decided I was going to start recording myself when I went to bed. I wanted to encapsulate these sleep paralysis experiences to see what it looked like. So I set up my phone on my dresser, pointing towards my bed, and hit record when I went to sleep.
Oh, God.
I figured if I could prove to myself that nothing was actually happening, my brain would calm down and stop the hallucinations. At night, I had the sleep paralysis experience again. But the next morning when I checked the footage, there was nothing. Just me sleep talking. I started recording every night, waiting to find something, but it never happened. My sleep was getting worse and worse, and I was feeling like I didn't get any sleep at all. I was now falling asleep in class, having more dark circles under my eyes than I already had. The military man started showing up every night in these sleep paralysis nightmares. And each time, he got clearer and clearer. As every night went on, I could start to see more details in what he was wearing. Medals on his chest, a big mustache, and a horrible-looking wound on his neck that looked raw and wet, as if something happened to him on the battlefield. After almost 2 weeks straight of this, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my mattress and dragged it into the living room. From the stuff I read, I figured that maybe it was something about that room in particular that was causing me to have these hallucinations. Maybe the paint fumes or some kind of mold was triggering this in my brain. I was really hoping this would fix it. That night, I slept on the mattress in my living room with all the lights on. I even took the NyQuil that my doctor recommended to help me get better sleep. I was so confident that changing rooms would help. I really thought it would fix it. But I had no idea that what would happen next would make everything else feel like a pleasant dream in comparison. Because this trick didn't work. I had the same nightmare. So after this, I was out of ideas and I was a complete mess. I looked like someone who hadn't slept in a month, probably because I didn't, and my friend noticed right away when one night we went out to dinner. He took one look at me and was like, "Whoa, you look terrible. What's going on?" I got Botox, you couldn't tell? No, I didn't say that. But everyone who does get Botox usually does look terrible, so I don't really get why they do it. But
True. I wonder what that's gonna be like. If I don't think about it, I don't get it. I call it sleep pee, so I don't get it. Sleep pee kind of sounds like sleep P-E-E instead of sleep P, the letter P.
It has nothing to do with the video. I wanted to tell my friend everything about the military man in my dreams, but I knew it would sound so stupid. So I just told him I was having trouble adjusting to living on my own, and I had insomnia. So he proposed the idea to sleep over at my place that night, and saying that it would maybe help me sleep better. Now, I don't know if he just wanted to do that because he was a good friend, or if it's because his roommate would always make their apartment smell like a nuclear waste site. But either way, I felt super relieved. I'd been stuck with these hallucinations for weeks, and the idea of just having a friend with me in that apartment made me feel so much safer. He came over that night, and we just chilled and watched movies. Unfortunately, he wanted to watch horror. Little did he know how much I was not in the mood for that. But for the first time in a few weeks, I felt normal. Just hanging out with my friend, making jokes, laughing. Around midnight, when he was getting tired, I offered him my actual room to sleep in because I hadn't slept in there in a couple weeks anyway at this point. So he asked why I'd been sleeping in the living room, and I just made up some story about how my room would always get too hot at night. So he took my bed, and I went to sleep in my makeshift bed in the living room. With the TV still playing quietly, and knowing that my friend was just down the hall, I felt comfortable to actually try and get some real sleep. The next morning, I woke up, and what do you know? I had no sleep paralysis that night. I thought I found the cure. It was all in my head. I just needed to have a friend over to calm me down. But then, my friend comes out of my room a little bit later, and I ask him how he slept. And this is what confirmed that this whole experience was way more than just sleep paralysis. Because my friend told me he really struggled to sleep that whole night. And at first I was like, yeah, sorry, I know, the bed isn't that comfortable. But then he was like, no, the bed was fine. It was just that when I was sleeping, I was having these really weird dreams. Immediately that caught my attention. So I asked him to tell me more. And he goes, well, I had these dreams that I was in your room and there was a man in the corner, but I couldn't do anything about it. When he said that, I felt like I was being pranked. Because remember, I never told my friend anything about what was actually happening to me at night. I just told him I couldn't sleep good. Nothing else. So he had no way of knowing what I was experiencing. I decided to not tell him anything at all about what I was going through at night because I couldn't think of a rational way to say it without sounding crazy, especially since he just experienced the exact same thing. Because I knew this wasn't just in my head anymore. Either we were both randomly having super similar hallucinations or something was going on inside that building.
Something real.
So I decided it was time to figure out who this military man was and what this all meant. The next morning, I looked up the history of military in the area I was now living in to see if there were any ties it could have had to my apartment. I didn't really know exactly what I was looking for. I ain't no mystery solver like Scooby-Doo. I was just kind of throwing stuff at the dartboard and seeing what stuck. But that was when I discovered that a big part of the Civil War was fought in the city I was in. That was interesting to me. But it still didn't put any of the clues together. When I found out this information about the war, I decided to ask my history professor about it to see if he could give me more details. And he's yapping to me about it. But there's one thing he said that really caught my attention. Because he goes, yeah, there actually used to be a military cemetery from the Civil War right on campus. What? Then he told me that unfortunately, they tore those cemeteries down recently and built apartments over it. So that's when I told him that my apartment building was built on the cemetery. And when I told him the address, he confirmed that was the cemetery he was talking about. Then he told me that when they built this apartment
God, if I were to stay there for one day, I'd be like,
complex, they were supposed to relocate all the remains. But from what he heard, and he didn't have any way to back this up, but this is what he heard. Apparently, they had a problem. Several of the graves couldn't be identified correctly. The headstones were damaged, and record keeping wasn't that great back then, and there was so many people that passed away that they didn't know exactly who the bodies were. So some of the bodies were never moved. I felt like throwing up, and that's when I said to him, so there's still bodies under my apartment building? In my opinion, most likely. He then pulled up some photos online of what the original cemetery looked like. There was a special section marked with a unique symbol, the exact same design as the decorative stones in the yard of my building. So those weren't statues like the landlord told me. They were actual headstones from the Civil War. When I got back home that afternoon, I went to take a look at the headstones just to confirm that what he was saying wasn't crazy, and he was right. So the next time I saw Mrs. King, I decided to ask her about this, because now I thought I knew what she meant about respecting the land you're living on. And when I brought up how this place used to be a cemetery for fallen soldiers, she smiled and said that that was what she was talking about. She didn't go into any more detail about it, but I could tell from the way she was...
Bye, guys. I'm gonna try not to fall asleep today.